200 hurt me the most because it was like my favorite race. And so I always wanted an American to get that record back. And I knew Katie would, but I was happy to see her go 3:58, which is something, when I was swimming, everyone always talked about breaking 4 minutes. So, and I know that Frederica had gone under 4 minutes, but to see an American woman go under Frederica was like, got it back, you know, it's kind of nice.
Did you ever think you would see any woman, much less an American, hold all three concurrently, 4, 8, and 1500? That's not easy to do.
Yeah, you know, I never really thought about it because I never really, you guys know me, like I never even thought about me holding all three of them at the same time. It kind of, you know, it's like on to the next thing, right? Break the record. And so I think it's the statisticians and, you know, you guys keep track of all that stuff. So I never thought, and when I got the text in Europe, I was like, oh yeah, that makes sense, right? But I never really thought like that would.
Yep. So, go ahead.
It's okay.
So Terry was talking yesterday about how Katie is sort of in the place that Missy was a couple years ago, where you just get on the blocks, you have no expectations, you love to race, you swim fast, you do a good time, oh great. But that Missy's not even in that place anymore, because once you do that, then it becomes harder. There are expectations. Can you speak to those two different?
And I think Phil and I have actually spoken a lot about that when he did a piece on Missy prior to London. And I, you know, that was how the Seoul Olympics were for me, like that 87, 88, 89 time period for me, when I did break all my records. So obviously there are things I would have done differently as those days faded, but hindsight's 20/20. So I understand those days, I get them. I think pressure gets to you. I think there's a lot of pressure and expectations and build-ups, but I think Katie seems mature enough, even though she's very young, but she seems mature enough to handle it. And you know, I think Missy to a point still has that. You know, I know she's in college and there's, you know, records and expectations, but you know, she has a lot of joy to do too, and I don't think that she really allows the minutia to get her down. And you know, that's speaking about Missy, but I think Katie's the same way, from what I can see so far.
Well, Missy said before her, during that 200 free, 200 back double, I just want to be able to swim without fear and swim for fun. Do you understand that place she's coming from?
Oh yeah, I understand that place. So I've been there because it is fun. You know, at the beginning, you know, like, you have no expectations, you have no pressures, there's no one taking your picture when you walk into the swimming pool, you're kind of anonymous. And not to say Katie was anonymous, but it is a liberating feeling. So I do think once you break the records and become, you know, basically a household name in the swimming world, that goes away. But I think it's a question of how you do it.
Do you have? Oh, sorry. I was just. Do you have? Looking, you said that you would have done some things differently. Do you have? You know, would there have advice to Katie in terms of kind of based on your own experience about how to handle the pressure, or just sort of anything to?
Yeah, I would say to know that there will be a meet or a season or a year where maybe you plateau, but not to let it get you down. I would say maybe not, especially in these days of social media, maybe not to read all your press, maybe not to, you know, almost to like not think too much about it. You know, when I swam in Seoul, I didn't think about it. I just had, I don't know, you guys knew me. I just got out there and swam, and these Germans were fast, but I beat them. And then when you start thinking about it, like, I wonder what they're doing today in East Berlin, and I wonder if, you know, then it like starts to become, I think in a nutshell for me, my identity became wrapped around swimming, and it became wrapped around who I was and winning and breaking records. And I think that it's important in life, in general, to have other things that make you, does that make sense?
Yep.
Do you know what I mean? And so I think just not to let it pile up too much. And that's what I did. You kind of got to let go and have swimming be a big part of your life.
So you want to go out with friends and you just want to be a normal teenager, but everyone recognizes you when you go to the movie theater and is bugging you. Is that sort of what you're talking about when
No,
it
I
becomes.
mean, I think that, but I think it's more the pressure of, well, here I am at this meet, and here I have to break this record. And if I don't break this record, well, I'm crummy. Or if I don't break this record, if I don't win, you know, I mean, especially when you're 17, 18, 19 years old, and you're a girl, and you're trying to figure out who you are, it's hard enough as a normal girl than to have people say, oh, well, why aren't you swimming like you used to? And you're like, why aren't I? What am I? And so it's just almost like better to just, you know, I eventually learned as I got older to leave swimming at the pool deck. When I was at swimming, I was totally engrossed in swimming, and when I was not swimming, I was trying to get my education and make friends outside of the sport and become a person outside of the sport of swimming. And I think that's one thing. Sorry, I feel like I'm like the non-Italian in me keeps doing this. Like I think Missy, you know, I know this isn't about Missy, but like I feel like she is equipped for that because she seems like she can let it go and go out and be her amazing, darling self, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like Katie's probably the same way, but you need guidance. You know, I needed people to tell me that it was okay not to win. And I needed people to tell me that it was okay not to break a world record, and it was okay to get second at the 92 Olympics and get touched out by 1900 a second. And as much support as I had from my parents and my coaches, I never had anyone tell me as a young woman that it was okay not to win. And that is what made swimming not fun for me. And that's, in hindsight, what I look back on and say, I wish someone had told me that one day I'll love my soul enough. And I wish someone had told me that the sun's gonna come up tomorrow. And my dad tried to tell me that a lot, but like, you get so wrapped up in it. You know, I needed someone to be like, there's a bigger picture, and one day you're gonna be 42, and you know, you're gonna have kids. You know what I mean? Like, you just need to keep it in perspective. I hope that all makes sense. And maybe it's the jet lag. I don't know.
You used the word normal, and Bob yesterday was telling anecdotes. Michael came into his office when Bob was at Michigan for that brief time and said, you know, I don't fit in here. I'm not normal. And Bob said, that's right. You aren't normal, and that's a good thing. I mean, you know, because you were an exceptional swimmer. He is an exceptional swimmer. I mean, what about the idea of coping? Did you ever have that kind of feeling of coping with the idea that I am out of the norm a little bit, and there's nothing wrong with that?
Yeah, I think that in and of itself, especially when I went to college, you know, and it's one of the reasons I chose Stanford because I think they try to keep everyone normal. Do you know what I mean? You don't live with athletes. That was what appealed to me about going to Stanford, and I realized that sometimes it's nice to be an athlete and have some perspective based on that. But yeah, their lives will never be the same. Do you know what I mean? Like, you know, we were driving to a baseball game the other night to sit in our suite, and my daughter said, is there going to be sushi in our suite? Because she never has sat in a normal seated baseball game. And my husband said, aren't you really happy you swam so fast 20 years ago? And I'm like, yeah, so there's stuff like, do you know what I mean? Like, he'll never be normal, and Missy will never be normal in a really philosophical sense. But I think you have to keep your life as normal as possible. Do you know what I mean? Like, you have to, I don't know. I feel like I'm philosophizing here for you guys. Like,
Could you remember when you first felt pressure in your career? Because it seems like Katie, she doesn't feel yet the pressure.
When I got to college.
And why was that?
I think because you're swimming for a team, you're on a scholarship. I swam in '88. I was a junior. I swam in '89 my senior year, which is just meant to be fun. And I actually had an amazing year. I won like 16 in my 800. So that was just kind of fun. And then after that, I started swimming a little slower in college. There were other distractions, and maybe I just wasn't swimming as well. And people started saying, "What's wrong with her?" And that's when I started feeling pressure. Was when I was like, "Well, what is wrong with me?" Right?
What goes through your mind when you watch Katie's races? Tell me what it's like to be Janet Evans watching Katie.
Well, I think she's amazing, and she swims her races a lot like I used to. She just kind of goes out and goes, and I remember that feeling where you're swimming and there's no one around you, and you're just like, well, what do I do now? You keep swimming, right? And she does that, and so often you see a distance swimmer who maybe goes out and then they don't know what to do, and then the field catches them. But what I like about her is that she goes out and she has this confidence, and she just goes. So I remember that feeling. And then the greatest part about it, here's the best part, when she finally gets to a race and has competition, like, I don't know when that will be. But for me, it was Seoul. It's so much fun. Like, those races for me in Seoul with these Germans, like, on either side of me, I just still remember them. It's like what I said about the 400 when we started here. It's like, so much fun. Because it's swimming 800, 16 laps by yourself is, like, fun and invigorating, and you win and you break a world record. It's great. But, like, when you get to race, it's amazing. races. It's probably why Katie likes the 200. I haven't asked her, but I don't know if she's told you guys that she likes the 200. But like, she's at least got a little bit of race on her.
She started with the long distance. What does it mean for you that she go down
I
now?
think that she's just getting a little bit older and getting a little more speed, and her endurance is probably already as amazing as it needs to be, and so now she has the liberty and the luxury of being able to work on some speed, which is great because that'll really help her 400 obviously as well.
What do you remember about London trials, hearing about her? You guys are both obviously at that meet.
Yeah, I think no one really knew her. I remember watching her 400 and I remember seeing how disappointed she was when she didn't make the team, and I remember thinking, oh, yeah, she wants this. She's pretty hungry. And then I remember watching her 800 where she just took it out and took no prisoners, right? And it was like almost, I felt like she kind of, it was making up for her 400 because I saw that disappointment in her eyes after the 400. So she was like, to heck with this, I'm just going to, go out there and do it. And that's how I think she attacks all of her races. And I think that's, what makes her very, very special and very good.
But you didn't meet her for the first time until Golden Goggles last year?
Golden Goggles. Okay. I remember she's so sweet and her parents are great. And her mom told me today I was young. I'm like, no, I'm really not young. I'm closer in age to you than I am to her. But if you want to tell me that, that's totally fine.
Can you think of, the fact that you were 403, 816, and 1552 in the late 80s, and here we are in 2014, and sub 4 minutes and 15:43 in the mile. I mean, did you think it would be 2014 for that to happen?
And I think we waited a long time for it. And I think it's great that it's an American. And I think that she's handling it well. I think she's humble. And hopefully, like we just spent 10 minutes talking about, I hope that, she has great mentors to help her deal with just not letting the pressure get to her. I have my first Pan Pacs in 87. I broke the world record in the 1500 in Clovis. There's some other people that remember that. And I went to Brisbane, and a girl named Julie McDonald killed me in the 800. And I remember I was crushed because I just broke the world record in the 800 and 1500. I was 15 years old. It was my first major international meet. And this Julie McDonald girl was out with me. And that's something too that I needed warning about, is kind of once you get there, people start, there's less of that, I'm going to shock the world and win the gold in London, and more of the, oh, that girl down here in the corner of the world in Australia knows who I am and she's out to get me. And it was a hard one for me because we were in Australia. You guys know how crazy the Australian fans are. They were downright, I thought at the time, rude, but I was 15 and anything hurt my feelings at the time, right? So, but I just remember there's stuff like that too that you have to start really thinking about, because as we know, once you get up there,
you are the bullseye.
You are the bullseye. And the other thing about going those times, what I've always found in our sport, and I think as Phil would tell you from covering all these other sports, that once someone breaks that barrier, then everyone does. It's almost like this weird threshold, and once someone finally breaks it, then everyone goes, well, heck, I can break 4 minutes too. And then all of a sudden we'll start seeing all of these sub 4 minutes. Because it just sat there for so long, and I think people were a little intimidated by it. So I think that, I think we'll see, I think we'll see some girls.
No one thought they could break 16 minutes though after you did it.
Yeah, but who likes the 1500? I mean, Katie's not even swimming the 1500. I'm like, I get to give you your gold medal tonight. She's like, yeah, I'm not swimming. I came all the way. Europe for you. No, I'm kidding. But I was like, oh yeah, I'll swim the 1500.
Do you ever feel gypped that you didn't get to swim the 1500 for a gold medal?
Totally. It was my best race.
Right.
100%. Totally. And it's amazing to me to still have the women.
Did you watch the race at last year's World Championships? Were you seeing a lot of it within an inch of each other the whole way?
Athlete just coming from Denmark, with a, so
that's one of those moments that the joy of Katie has experienced that. Right. But that was one of the most unbelievable races actually ever.
Yeah. Well, but what I think in the U.S. is that she's not going to it gets a little. You have to start she's going to have to find her own internal motivation in that sense. And then be ready for the gunners coming for her when she gets overseas.
What does she ask you about? Did she ask you any advice?
No,
Can you share anything?
No, she asked me how my kids are. And she, she's really cute, and I just feel like this, old mom was like, hey, you know, but like, I mean, she's what, 16?
17.
17. My daughter's almost 8. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, I'm.
You're saying your daughter's closer to age
Of
to
course,
her than you
for sure. By miles, right? By miles.
I don't want to tell you this, but you could be your mom. It's only,
I totally
it's only
could
a
be her
25.
mom. I could totally be her mother. Do you know what I mean? And that's why her mom was like, "You're so young." I'm like, "Really? I'm not." But if you want to say, I am. Great. But no, I think she's sweet and she gets maybe a little shy.
Yeah.
You know.
see that a little bit.
And so, but then again, I mean, like you know, I don't think with you guys, you know, it'd be nice to like go to lunch with her. Do you know what I mean? Because I think it's hard in these very forced situations. It would be nice to just kind of.
And what could you ask to her? Maybe you would like to ask her.
I would just, I think I'd just like to ask her, well, I think I'd ask her what she thinks about all this. Like, how is it different and how has it changed from the kid in Omaha 2 summers ago? Like, does she see it any differently? Like, almost ask her with some perspective what you guys were trying to get at, which is like, does it get harder now? And I would maybe ask her subtly if it's gonna get harder. You know what I mean? Like, and I try to like help her. You know, she's not gonna go 358 every time she swims the 400, and she's not gonna go an 811 every time she swims the 800. And so I think that, you know, and I don't know Missy very well. I haven't followed her really this week because, like I said, I've been overseas. But I hope she's not losing the joy because I think that was one of the things that kept her.
It was sort of jarring to hear her even mention the word fear because she looks like the antithesis of fear. She
That's
looks
what I've
like
always
pure
said.
joy.
So.
Do you think that she has to be aware that it's nearly the end of improvement?
I don't think, well, I wouldn't say it's the end of improvement for her. So I suspect that and expect her to do bigger and better things than she's done here. However, I think that
I gotta have some good hand taps on this recording.
like if I was Italian, I'd have an excuse. But like I think that you can't do your best time every time. Do you know what I mean? And I think that she needs to. Do you know what I mean? I'm not standing here saying she's never going to do another best time because I actually think she will. And I think she'll go a lot faster than 200 as well. I think that's what we need to watch. But I'm just saying that it's a long road. I mean, she's 17. She could swim until she's 24. You know, and I spent my last best time was at 89 or 90. And I swam through 96. I spent 6 or 7 years swimming without a best time. And so, to me, trying to find the joy in all of it for those last 6 and 7 years was a little difficult at times, which is why I think I came back a couple of years ago. I just wanted to find some joy in it, you know, that I think can be lost. It's like the innocence is lost a little bit. So I think that what, you know, older swimmers like myself can do, and maybe us swimming, is to help these athletes. Like, realize that it's not, there are going to be days maybe you feel like missing, but at the end of the day, you're not letting anyone down, you know?
Did you ever think of doing the 200 or the 400 IM got in the way?
No, it did get in the way, and they never had the 4x2 relay until Atlanta. And so for me, I wasn't going to get first or second. And I did swim the 200 in trials in Atlanta. I think I got like 9 I had a little speed, but nothing like what she has.
Once you see her, do you think she could be serious relay rather than the 100?
You know, my husband asked me that on the plane today. Do you think she's swim the 100 too? You know, he's kind of a swim rookie. I'm like, I don't think so. I don't know though. In the 100.
She's 13 feet, which is not bad.
No, it's not bad. But what expense do you start taking away endurance? And there's so many, you know, they're sprinters, you know, I don't know. I mean, the 200 makes a lot of sense to me. Because when you start hurting on that, when they start hurting on the third lap, those sprinters, that's where you start motoring.
Thank you.